do I have to convince you that such a world might exist? If I did, I could take you into science and talk about forces. Because when the scientist takes the atom apart, what he really gets are not more particles, although that's what he says he gets. But the real thing there is forces. And these forces are enormous. The electromagnetic force is 10 to the 40th times gravitation. And that means 1 followed by 40 zeros. I used the illustration that if a piece of chalk represented the gravitational force, just that centimeter distance, in order to represent the electromagnetic force between particles, I'd have to have, on the same scale, I'd have to have something 10 trillion times bigger than the entire universe. Now, when you realize that that world exists, as it were, beneath the atoms and particles, or behind the atoms and particles, more fundamental than the particles, that world is part of the cosmos. That's part of our cosmology. The problem is, how do you explain it? It's not a thing any more than you can refer to your need for your glasses as a desire, but it doesn't have the kind of thingness. You couldn't put it in the refrigerator. It's not a solid object. It's a dynamic that causes things to happen. A force is still an agent. It's still something you use to do something with. It could serve. It doesn't. Sometimes it becomes an end in itself. But when the Tibetan neophyte is going through his religious training, he's trying to make the forces his allies, instead of being traps, instead of being ferocious demons. What then would he do with them? Then we get then to the point that there has to be a purpose which would use these forces. Otherwise, they're self-existent entities without any meaning. And I think we can sort of come to a reconciliation. I'm speaking from the point of view of the rational scientific view that wouldn't accept the existence of God. We can accept the existence of God by recognizing that there's a point to things. There's a purpose. And it's what Teilhard de Chardin calls the omega point. The omega point, omega was the last letter of the Greek alphabet. That final point which we are all moving toward, or want to move toward, in order to go through the performance of living. And if we once recognize the point, what's the point of existence, the purpose of existence, we then have a different contribution to our cosmology. I can represent it just as a point. But what's the point of all this? That is that from which all of this flows. It's as though the point were the creative thing as well as being the end point. And when we recognize it can have that dual role, the beginning and the end, we can then see that the universe is a something that's brought into existence by the potential of the beginning seeking to gain the fulfillment of the end. And from that, I can, if you like, invent. See, I call it my theory of process. I can say Well, you can look up process in the dictionary. It says, process is a series of steps leading to an end, leading to a goal. So you can think of the universe as a series of steps leading to a goal.